Good morning, good afternoon, good day, and good evening. Now, I don't know what time of day it is for you, but for me, it's the good time of day. We are back at it again today. It is another day, another dollar. And as you can see by what I have up here dealing with black marital status, we are going to be talking about the black family. Why do I keep on harping on this? Why do I keep on talking about the black family? What is it about the black family that is so relevant that it requires so much of my time, so much of my effort? Why do I want to talk about it in regards to just about everything? When as I know that there is a critical race theory that deals with the fact that a lot of times, I shouldn't even say a lot of times, that in order to actually understand the history of this country, you cannot and you cannot get an accurate understanding of this country and the ways of this country, how things work here, without understanding the actual history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which includes the fact that this country was founded by taking it away from the indigenous individuals that were here, and it was on the backs of slaves that this country was built. Apart from that, and wanting to whitewash it and to make it seem like it's something other than that, then it's not really history. It makes people feel uncomfortable. It makes people feel some type of way, so to speak. But yet and still, that is fundamentally at the core of this country. And without understanding those aspects, you cannot accurately understand the country. And in very similar manner, without understanding the black family, you cannot possibly get a firm understanding on building the community and building the black community specifically within this country. And before I really get into that, I want to talk about since we are talking about family, there's two people. I shouldn't even say two people. There's quite a few people that I want to mention right now because today, for those of you who are not familiar with it on how things work, we're dealing with the fact that today is the first day of the bar exam. So there's a lot of young black attorneys that are trying to get their first opportunity, and part of that first opportunity is passing the bar. So there's a lot of people out there right now, well, I shouldn't say right now, earlier today, and then also tomorrow, because specifically for states that are UBE states. There's a lot of states that are not, or there's a few states that are not still, but the vast majority of states are UBE states at this point, and that's the Uniform Bar Exam. That's what UBE stands for. I apologize speaking in acronyms, and I shouldn't be, but today there's a lot of young people today that and tomorrow that are going through the bar, and specifically for those family members that I have, specifically from my alma mater, uh, from the law school I graduated from and whatnot. But I'm really praying for you guys. I'm rooting for you, and just know that if you're a TMSL alum, you're in my heart and you're in my prayers, and I am there. I am there with you, right beside you, hoping and praying for the best that you can actually get through this. You pass the bar, and you are practicing right afterwards. Get through this. Get through the MPRE, and now you're officially a lawyer. I say able to practice, start knocking down those student loan debts, and getting after it. The other person I want to talk about family wise right now is my previous business partner, who actually it's because of him that actually got started doing this at this point. And Dre, if you're listening, I want to tell you thank you very much. I also want to make sure that I highlight today because it happened the other day, and I guess we're dealing with this 2-2-2-2. This happy so many has a everything's doubled up, so it's too much of a coincidence. Yeah, there's some dad humor there for you, but yeah, so being too much of a coincidence, a lot of this cooperation. But one of the persons who to help spur me along, get me to doing this at this point, Dre, thank you very much. And with that being said, I want to make sure that I put on blast that the On the Job Training Podcast has started its own channel, and did his first uh, channel podcast the other day, and it was outstanding and spectacular. So if you can, I'm going to encourage you to go check it out. I'm going to put the link to it in the description below. Hopefully everybody, y'all can get in there and y'all can take a look at it, and you guys can enjoy it just as much as I did. The brother's doing big things as always, and he's always in there doing it the way he is. So there you go, fam. uh, Big looking out on you. Hopefully everything goes great. Be blessed. As always, we might not be doing it together, but we still doing it, and I'm glad that you're doing it in a big way at this point. That being said, let's get back to family. As the rest of my family, or the extended family, I should say, of us as Black people in general, and specifically Black people as a unit, as we talk about the culture or for the culture or whatnot. But let's look at this statistic, because this is one of those things I think it doesn't really bode well for us as a community when we look at the fact that we're at odds with each other. And I think that uh, this chart here, it really goes into just how much at odds we are. Because when you look at it, you have Black people in general are married at 30%, whereas the never married portion is at 50%. And Black men are dragging down, I guess, the Black women never married portion, because we're at 52% never married, whereas Black women are at 48. However, the divorces are going to be higher within the middle. That's the number in the middle. And who really suffers in a situation like this is going to be the children. All right. So we're looking at Black children, and as far as the Black family goes, and in every metric that we have, every way that we're able to measure success in our society, children suffer when the male is not in the home, or the father is not in the home. And so when we look at these numbers, and to see that you have a lot of Black families that are suffering by not having, or being as a single parent household, it's something that reflects badly on the children. I shouldn't even say reflects. That's a bad choice of words. It's something that impacts the children, and it impacts them in a very negative light. And it's something that we really need to focus on. And I think that part of that is, we as a well, as a he does do it, so I might as well give him his due. As I know a lot of people don't like Kevin Samuels, but Kevin Samuels is someone who has facilitated a conversation within the community, and he's shown a light on aspects of the community that are lacking. So that's one of those situations where you look at it, and whether you like where he stands or you don't like where he stands, the conversation is now being had. And that is something that is imperative, especially as my day job. I do mediations, and seeing how far apart, specifically the Black family is. If there's anything I could do, if I could snap my fingers and make a change, I would love to be able to see the Black family strengthen again, because that's when we were actually accomplishing things. When you look at things such as uh, the civil rights movement back in the 50s and 60s, it was because the Black family stood together. We like to highlight and point to things like Black Wall Street in Tulsa. That was because Black families stood together, and we recognize the importance of, and Black men recognize the importance of Black women, and Black women recognize the importance of Black men. So where does that leave us for Black families? And there's a graphic I want to show you guys, if you give me a moment here. There we go. And you're not able to see what I'm talking about. Let me pull this graphic up for you. So here's the graphic, and this is not just with Black fathers. This is father absence in America, and again, it's biased, but it's coming from the Census Bureau from 2021, and it's that 1 in 4 children live without a biological step or adoptive father in the home. Consequently, there is a father factor in nearly all of the social ills facing America today, and we're going to talk about some of these ills, or one of these ills specifically tomorrow, and the one that we're really going to talk about is poverty, because one of the things that affects all of us, or all of our communities, is poverty. And there's more of a correlative link between poverty and crime than there is between drugs and crime, right? Poverty is one of those things that when you actually look at it, it's what lends itself to producing crime and whatever advantage that you want to look at it specifically with violent crime. There's a direct link with poverty and violent crime. Because a lot of times I don't like to look at the drug crime. I think those are manufactured. We're telling people what to do with their consciousness, and we're trying to make a correlation between drugs and crime as opposed to actual things such as violent crimes and poverty. In any event, well, one of the things it's when you look at the absence of a father within the home, it talks about children are 4 times greater risk of poverty, 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen, more likely to have behavioral problems. They didn't quantify the number, but that's something they stated. More likely to face abuse and neglect, 2 times greater risk of infant mortality, more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, more likely to go to prison, 2 times more likely to suffer obesity, more likely to commit crime, 2 times more likely to drop out of school. So this is the impact of fathers not in the home. Why am I pointing out the impact of fathers not in the home? Obviously, I'm a male, so there's a bias there for me. Where as I looking at what the impact is, and this is not saying that I didn't, as because I was one of those. I'm an outlier. I'm sitting on the outside looking in because I had a father in the home, and I love my dad, and I appreciate the fact that he stuck around and he did a good job, and that he did and he did a lot of things that he led by example for me. So I can't look at these statistics and go, okay, well, these are things that I had lacked in the home and my father didn't provide them and blah, 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 blah. I can't say that. I'm not able to twist my lips to say that in the least. And that has but that also doesn't mean that I don't recognize the impact of not having a father in the home. A lot of the individuals that I knew, a lot of individuals I interacted with, they also did not have a father in the home. Some of them did, some of them didn't. And there was a difference in how they interacted with society. Some of them, it was easier for them to get involved in gangs. For me growing up, Crips and Bloods was not an option because my dad was there, and that was not on his watch. It wasn't happening. And that's not to say that mothers aren't instrumental, and it's not to say that mothers aren't important. What I am saying is that mothers and fathers are different. And I know that that's not a popular expression to state that there's a difference between the sexes and that we are different, and that aside from just the genitals that we have that make the difference, there's also the fact that the chemicals within our bodies, what courses in my body on average is different than what courses through a woman's body on average. There's a reason why in sports that are more objective out there that you have men's sports and women's sports, right? So you can have a men's 100 and you can have a women's 100. And even in a year, like when we talk about sports equality and women being able to compete with men, that's not to say that a woman at top physical fitness or top physical acumen in the 100 wouldn't be able to smoke a college student or someone else who's not at the top. But if you have top women versus top men, is going to be top men are going to be empirically faster or empirically stronger. And that's not a degradation or trying to put down women or to say that women are lesser than. It's just saying that we're different. And different is just that. It's different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's different. And sometimes some things are measurable and you can measure it and you can say in track. Look in 88 when Florence Griffin Joyner, she was able to win the 100 meters and to set a world record doing it. And if you take her numbers that she had at that time frame against the male numbers at that time frame, Carl Lewis, Ben Johnson, who was on the real good supplements at the time, Carl Lewis arguably had some, but they were argued down when you go back and you look at it. But with everybody in there at top physical performance with all their supplements, the men athletes were faster than women. And every measurable objective standard that you have out there as far as sports, there's a reason why men and women are different or have different as far as in physical sports, why there's a different category for men and women as far as that goes. What does that have to do with men and women and making sure the family is strong? Well, it's recognizing that we are different. And while we are different and not the same, obviously, that there is value that we can add towards one another. And the value that we can add towards one another's lives is one thing, but also there's value in what we add towards the lives of our kids. Our outlooks are different. The way we view things are different. The way that the abilities that we bring to a relationship are different. And I'm not just talking about the physical ones that I highlighted a moment ago, but in looking at it, there's definitely a difference between us. But they've allowed us to look at those differences between us, to villainize them, and to separate us from one another. So when you look at things like uh, all the negative impacts on children when it comes to uh, the value system, or I shouldn't say the crime and all of the metrics that you can look at to see whether or not children are suffering or not because of it, it's empirical. The numbers bear it out. We might feel one way about it and say, "Oh, well, in my case, blah 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 blah, and I'm the outlier." A lot of times we're not. We all like to believe that we're the outlier, and that in whatever it is we're doing, we are on the outside, and the rules apply to everybody else. Those rules don't apply to us. For me, for the things that I'm doing, it doesn't apply to me in this way at all. It applies to everybody else. It doesn't apply to me. I'm different. I'm that special snowflake that these things don't apply to me. And a lot of times, many times, that's not the case. Not the case at all. And when we actually consider it from that standpoint, when we actually look at it to see what it is that we're doing, the value that we're bringing, what's going on with the family, and whether or not the children are impacted or not, these things are important because if the Black family, the nucleus, the Black family is not intact, and our children then go on to suffer, then they come up and they repeat that cycle because of what's modeled for them. And they're not able to do the things that's necessary within the community, right? Because many times in our community, we have many admirable traits, right? Even if the traits aren't what everybody else might say, they look at it, they see how it's applied, they go like, oh, that person's a lost cause type deal. But the traits that that individual has are admirable traits, traits that should be emulated. It's traits that if you pointed them in the right direction could benefit a lot more people. And I would encourage everybody, especially as we're talking about the fact that this is Black History Month. Let's make this every year, all year long, all 12 months, Black History Month, right? Black History Year, Black History Years. Let's make it so that Black history gets back to where it needs to be, that it's just history. That as we talk to our children and as we tell them about the great things that that can happen within the family group, but and what it is that they come from, what it is as is going back to look at what they came from, even if there's mistakes that have been made. Let's highlight those things. Let's talk about them. Let's see let them see what it is that can happen within the family. Because in comparison to other groups, and let me share this with you as well. In comparison with other groups by race, we can see that white people and Asian people lead the pack when it comes to keeping an intact family. And it's interesting to me because we look at the married versus the never married within those groups, but it's very interesting to me that in terms, and I don't want to say meritoriously because meritocracy is a myth, and is it going to be Friday? It's either Thursday or Friday. We'll be talking about how meritocracy in our society is definitely a myth. It's not something that happens. We're going to touch on it actually tomorrow when we talk about poverty. But the thought process, the theory that we succeed solely based on merit is a fallacy, right? Our effort that we put into things is one aspect of what it is that we're trying to do, right? That's one aspect of the equation. So if you have an equation and someone tells you, I need you to return for me a real number, and they give you an equation, and the equation says x equals, or x times 3 equals 23, right? You can do that mathematical equation and you can solve for x and you come up with an actual number, a real number. It's going to be a decimal number. Or let's make it easier. Let's say x times 3 equals 21. You can actually come back as a with a real number, or 24, either or. But you can actually come back with a real number, 7 in the case of 21, or 20, or if it's 24, it's gonna be 8. But you can actually come back with that real number. And now if I give you that same problem, I said X times 3 equals Y, now you come back with another equation. It's not a real number, right? And to tell somebody, well, let's just say I give you the 21 instead. X times Y equals 21. Which one is more important in coming and bringing back a real number? The honest answer would be you need both of them, right? In that equation, that two-part has both parts, both the 21 and the 3, helps you to understand, or helps you to find the value of X. Likewise, in a similar manner, when dealing with the family, you can't go like, oh, well, it's either the father or the mother, or which one is more valuable towards the family. Both of them have intrinsic value within the family. Both of them bring value to the family. So when you're looking at what you can do, whether or not it's your effort in a meritorious society that we live in, or whether or not it's the opportunities and the ability and that are put before you, whether or not you have access and opportunities, both of those parts are equally important. Now, the only one you're actually going to be able to do anything about it is your actions. Would you control what your actions are? The access and the opportunities, you don't. In looking at Malcolm Gladwell's book, when he talked about in Outliers, one of the things that he highlighted, or one of the people that he talked about, was Bill Gates. And it was interesting looking at his analysis and talking about Bill Gates and all of the opportunities and the access that Bill Gates had along the way in order to get him to the point where he was able to found Microsoft. Right now, that's not to say that Bill Gates didn't put in what Malcolm Gladwell highlighted as this 10,000 hours. Right, that's not to demean that in any respect, to say that he didn't put in his 10,000 hours in learning about how software worked, learning about computer programming. And even with that, he still didn't create DOS, which later became Microsoft DOS, right? He still didn't create it. He bought that program, that compiler, from someone else. And he made that the operating system. He bought that operating system from someone else, and he made that his operating system that he focused Microsoft around, and then built that up from there. He also had access going to Harvard and making the networking connections that he had there. So all along the line, there were things that he was able to take advantage of that other people just don't have access or opportunity to do. And it's not that they wouldn't put in the 10,000 hours. Their mothers didn't come together to get their kids access to a computer lab at a time when most people didn't have access to a computer lab, right? But a lot of whites and Asians do, and they keep their families intact in order to continue doing these things. So if you have families that are intact, then it helps to build bigger, helps to build and make the community stronger. What is that is that to say that Black people don't want strong communities? No, that's not the point at all. In fact, one of the things that we're looking at, or one of the things I want to consider as we're talking about it, is the fact that the community is stronger, and we always recognize that. However, we buy into the fiction or the lie that we can do that apart from the community, that we can achieve apart from the community. And we take outliers and then we hold them up as if they're the rule. And in reality, they're not the rule. They're just that. They're the outliers. They're the exception. And the exception to the rule is not the rule. So what does that have to say for our families? And how does that, how are we able to convert that over so that we can have stronger families? Is that to say that we rally ourselves around and that we don't allow anyone else in? That's a non-starter. That's not going to happen. That toothpaste is already out the tube, feathers out of the pillow, whatever the analogy is that you want to utilize. That's not going to happen. What is going to happen is that if we take that standpoint, we take that viewpoint, what we're going to do, we're going to start alienating a significant portion of our community, right, of Black people, because we start to dictate and determine what it means to be Black. We start to dictate and determine if they're Black enough. And we start to say things wherein we start to imply by our rhetoric that ignorance is equated to blackness. Intelligence is related to whiteness, right? And we don't want that within our families. And having strong families, uh, having fathers that are there, mothers that are present, is something that will definitely help that along. And appreciating one another, not just demeaning one another. Young kids should not have to hear growing up, "You don't need a man." That should not be in the lexicon of the Black community. There were a lot of different adages that, when looking at it, uh, and have been highlighted all the way back since the time of Shahrazad Ali. Uh, when you look at them, there's a lot of things that are stated for our kids that shouldn't be there, that does nothing but undermine the Black community. It undermines the role of the father within the community. It undermines the role of mothers. It minimizes mothers down to objects, right? Where if you have a father who has a bunch of baby mamas, and when he does get with his kids, the only thing he's talking about is, "Ooh, is she bad? How bad she is? Ooh, she look bad," right? If that's the only value that you're instilling, then no wonder that you keep on getting these same outcomes as a young man. If the only value that you're instilling in our daughters is looking at him for as a pocket, right? And it's not even that men are not supposed to provide or shouldn't be, but what is it that we're actually able to do in this in communally? What are we actually supposed to do? Are we now holding out a value for our kids, specifically for our young girl, for our young women, that the value for them is solely in how much a man earns? Is the value we're holding out for our young men that a woman's value is solely in how good she looks? That's it. We begin to neglect things such as, in, in the old days, we used to talk about whether or not she has a good personality. That used to be as a you look at it, and you're like, oh, she has a really good personality. That's the way that she was saying that she was dog ugly or whatever. But if you're valuing the thing that's actually important, the good personality would actually be the thing that you do want to value at that point. And I really don't want to beat a dead horse at this point, because I really do want to get into poverty tomorrow and talk about those things tomorrow, and try to see if I can get you a couple more guests next week. I know that we're going to be talking next week uh, with the problem solver, Sean McLaughlin. He is an attorney here in Houston, and he's going to be talking with us about his business. And he's going to, we're going to sit down, we're going to interview him, and there's going to be an opportunity for everyone who wants to come on in to ask him questions, or just to listen to Sean talk about being a Black attorney here in Houston. So anyone who has any kind of questions or anything along those lines, feel free to call on in. It will be interactive. We're going to talk for a little bit beforehand. We're going to interact and chop it up, and then I'll let you guys know when he's going to be ready to take some questions. Hopefully he'll take some questions from you. And I'm talking to him. Does he want to do it? Well, the intent is to have it done live, and it's not legal advice. I want to make sure I highlight that for you, that when he talks to you about the different aspects of being an attorney, it is not legal advice. Yes, he's an attorney. Yes, he's here. But like anything else in the legal field, he is not your attorney, and he is not here to grant you legal advice. But he can talk to you about various aspects of things within the legal field. With that being said, I don't want to keep you guys too long today talking about family. Tomorrow we'll be back. We're going to be talking about poverty, and it's going to be a little longer. It's probably going to be an hour or so that we're going to be talking about poverty tomorrow. But I hope you guys bear with me tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be interesting. And I want to show the correlation between poverty and crime that they're always trying to make between things such as drugs and crime. And I also want to make the point tomorrow, because one of the things that really bothers me about the drug epidemic, specifically now, we see that there is a drug epidemic, and the tack that they're taking with white people in light of this drug epidemic at this point is that they treat them as if they're people and that they have a problem. Not that they need to be incarcerated or anything along those lines, but that there are people and people who have a problem, or there might be some issues within society that needs to be addressed in order to address their issues. So in looking at it from that perspective, it's going to be interesting tomorrow because we're going to see it from that perspective, as well as the impact that poverty has, or the correlation that poverty has with violent crime. And we're going to talk about that extensively tomorrow. As you know me, I'm going to bring charts and figures tomorrow. We're going to talk about it. And hopefully we can come to an understanding that poverty is the actual culprit and not drugs, right? So yeah, we can say drugs are a symptom, but drugs are not the issue. They're not the cause of the actual problem. So with that being said, I know I haven't told you already, I love you. And to all of my family out there that's going through it right now, specifically my TMSL alums, keep it up. One day down, one to go, and then the waiting starts. But in the meantime, nose to the grindstone, eyes on the prize, keep it focused. And to my brother Dre, congratulations again on getting that first episode out on the On the Job Training Podcast. Look for the description, look for it down there in that description below. And yeah, that's going to be it for me. I love you. Hope that you're having a great day. Hope that you're killing it. And may you always, always, always have peace in your life. And with that, family, we're out.